Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Connections with Cass podcast. My name is Cass, and I am your host. I am a psychic medium and spiritual coach here on this earth to help bridge the gap between the spirit world and the physical world. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the angelic realm, in particular, the archangels that are extremely helpful in helping us and helping guide us and shine light through this crazy human experience that we come to have. And if you're here because you've listened to my previous podcast episodes about mediumship, which is pretty tangible because we all have past loved ones that we want to hear from, right? Or you're interested in shadow work, and then I start talking about angels, and you're like, Cass, I just don't know about this. Like, this is a little woo woo. This is a little spiritual for me. Stick with me because I think that one of the things that I really appreciate about this podcast and being able to share this information with you is that I like to make things understandable, comprehensible, and easy for you to conceptualize. And it took me a while to get on board with the angels, to be honest with you. I had a lot of doubts due to the religious context that is commonly perceived with angels. And I don't know, it's just really crazy to think that angels are real, but they are. And they can help us a lot when we start to recognize them and tune into their energy. And that's why I wanted to talk about them today. And particularly, the archangels are here as divine messengers from God, Source, Universe, Creator to this earth to help facilitate light to be shown through certain aspects of the darkness of humanity. So, the archangels are high frequencies of light that help us in navigating things like childbirth and child rearing, as Gabriel does, or protection and support, like a big brother, as Michael does, shadow work and getting over fears, as Cassiel does, or healing and connecting to nature, as Raphael and Uriel do. So there's many different archangels, and they all kind of have their specialty into which aspect of humanity they are helping. And so that's why it's super helpful to get to know them and kind of recognize their energy so that you can call them in. And when we can recognize and call them in during certain times in our life, it just helps our energy to align to their energy more, because the more we recognize each other, the more we can really allow it in. And become conscious of it and allow it to really transform us from within. So, I will start by talking about how I came into my awareness of the fact that angels are real and that the archangels are helping us on our journeys here. It was back early in my awakening, probably the catalyst to all of this, but there was a really dark incident where I was witness to somebody who almost lost their life. And there was about a 5-minute period of me and that other person just being together, and they were losing their life. And it was a moment that, I mean, obviously changed my life forever, but a moment of complete surrender for me as well. And that's where I had my ego death, where I just sat in that moment waiting for the ambulance to come and just thinking and feeling to myself like, truly nothing matters except for every person on this earth to be happy and healthy and do what they love in life. All of the petty stuff, all of the fears and insecurities that I had, leading up to that day. We had even like talked about drama and stuff earlier that day. Everything in that moment went out the window. And that was kind of my jolt into it. And then, secondly, as I started to become more aware of like what was happening and the fact that, you know, this person might not be on this earth. Sorry, I haven't talked about this in a long time. This person might not be on this earth anymore. You start to not only lose your ego, but you start to tune into what else is there and where is this person going? And as soon as I kind of got out of my head and I had done everything that I could do for this person, I started to feel my spirit guide right next to me, number one, but number two, just an incredible singing of angels around me. And I didn't know that they were angels at the time. I just felt and heard this really high pitched song that just made me feel like everything was going to be okay. I can't really put it into words, but it was just like this, like you would hear the angels in the movies. And if you had asked me before what angels sound like, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. But now, like, it just sounded like the angels do in the movies, like that, bah, but it was in the back of my head kind of, and just I felt almost like glittery energy in the darkest moment of my life, really. this person I love is on their last breath, literally, and I feel like there's glitter and in the air around me, and I feel like this super beautiful energy around me, and I truly felt like everything was going to be okay, and thank God it was, and everything ended up being okay. But there was a good, I would say, 6 minutes of me thinking that things were not going to be okay and completely surrendering, and in that moment, I really felt spirit, and I really felt angels for the first time. And so that was my first experience with the angels, and from then, I was a believer. I was a believer of angels, I was a believer of spirit guides, I was a believer of all of it, and almost like I didn't have to put all of this responsibility on managing my life and controlling my life on me. It was like things were going to happen, but that's the whole point. Like, is for things to happen for us to move through it and for us to start, not depending on, but allowing the beautiful light from beyond this physical plane to help us because this life is really, really, really hard. And especially in that time for me, it was just this time of trying to surrender, but still trying to control everything and still trying to make sense of everything. And the universe said, enough, Cass, like you're going to believe, right? And I learned a lot from that experience. And then about 6 months later, I had another incident. I shouldn't say incident, another beautiful experience with the angels. I was getting a reading done for myself, and it was from a woman that had given me a reading before. So I was familiar with her, and she was kind of asking me how I was doing. And I'm like, I'm doing well, but I have this situation with my shoulder and my neck and my head that will not go away, where it was like tingling. I think I've talked about it in previous episodes where it's like tingling behind my eye, kept getting like numb, and my vision would get blurry at times. And it was annoying for a long time, like when I was working in restaurants. And for the past 8 years or so, it had been an issue. But I had gone to doctors about it and nothing could be explained. And they just said it was like nerve pain or stress headaches. But then when I stopped working a human job and I stopped ignoring my body, it started to become so much more apparent that it was an issue. And because I was trying so hard to tune into myself and tune into my body and shift everything within me to be a better person and stay sober and all of the things and just be less stressed. I was very aware of it all of the time, and I had tried everything. I had tried every kind of meditation you could do. I had tried every different kind of like stress relief thing you could do, acupuncture, all of the things, and it just would temporarily help it, but not stop it completely. So I'm having this reading with this woman, and I ask her, and she's like, says the same thing, like you should try this meditation, that meditation, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And just feeling at a complete loss. And I hung up the call and I sat in my chair and I remember closing my eyes and just being like, I need help. Like, please, team, help me. Please, God, please, anything that is benevolent, help me. And I had this inner knowing to just go lay down and try to meditate. So I laid down and I started to meditate. And I remember starting to drift off to sleep. And as I was falling asleep, I heard this singing again, this high frequency. It was like the previous situation, but it was a different tone. So a slightly almost higher sing songy kind of energy. And it's like how the movies depict it, like ah, I don't know. And I felt it surround me again and come into my ears and just infiltrate my entire being. And I was so relaxed. And I remember thinking to myself in the meditation, well, at the very least, this is a relaxing moment for me to have, and that'll help all of me, right? So even if it doesn't help my head, this is nice. This feels good. And then it kept going and going and going, and I started to see angels as well, or just like entities of light, beautiful frequencies just kind of dancing around. And I said, "Oh my gosh, the angels are helping me." And I sat up from the meditation once they had left, and I kid you not, I had absolutely no pain in my head at all. I had no tingling, nothing. For the first time in 8 years, there was nothing there. And I was like, oh my God. And 5 minutes went by and it still was nothing. And then 10 minutes went by and it was still nothing. And I was like, oh my God, it worked. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it lasted for a few days and then it started to come back. But I now recognize that there was a lot of energetic residue in that area of my body due to the stress of my masculine energy, which is the right side, and me questioning a lot of my spirituality too has contributed to it as well. But either way, it was one of those moments where I was like, those were angels and they helped me. Wow, that's crazy. And so from there, I was even more of a believer, and I definitely called on them for more help. And their help would always temporarily relax me at the very least, and even do more than that. But what I realized is that they have the ability to inspire growth within us, but our growth and our healing come from within, and we are the co-creator with our God source universe creator, and they are supporters and assistants to us finding what we have within us to answer the questions we have, to solve the problems we have. And that all that they're doing is shining light into the places within us where we can't see but have within us. So those were the experiences I had with the angelic realm before I knew anything about angels, but that kind of convinced me, okay, this stuff is real. Yes, spirit guides are real. I felt that pretty strongly, and now angels are a real thing. And then really the next encounter that I had was when I felt called to go to a metaphysical store, which happens quite frequently with me, but on this particular occasion, I felt like there was a deck of cards and oracle cards that I was supposed to get. And I was living up in the mountains of New Hampshire. There was this tiny shop that I absolutely loved going to. And I walked into the store and I just saw this deck of cards called the Female Archangel Deck, Oracle Deck by Callista. And I just felt really called to get it. So I was like in between meetings and rushing. So I grabbed the deck, checked out, brought it home, and didn't think much of it. I didn't open it that day. I didn't open it the next day. It must have been a couple of weeks before I had even thought about it again. And what happened that prompted me to think about it was that I was getting a mediumship reading. And a few things were said that just made me think about this deck that I had bought a few weeks prior and had never opened. So I was practicing with another medium, hung up the call, and felt like I was meant to open this deck. And I did, and I pulled two cards, and it was Archangel Cassiel and Archangel Cassiel's counterpart, Archangels Serenity. So in this particular deck, the archangels are those divine frequencies of light that I spoke about earlier. Every soul or every frequency that exists within this universe holds both masculine and feminine energy. In this particular oracle card deck that channeled the archangels, the author split the frequencies of the masculine and the feminine and channeled the feminine energy and the masculine energy. So every major archangel, like that's well known, that usually goes by their masculine name, has a feminine counterpart. And each of those just represents the duality of masculine and feminine within the same frequency. So Archangel Cassiel and Archangels Serenity came out, who are counterparts for each other. And immediately something went off in my brain because of the name Cassiel and the name Serenity, because both of those names, obviously Cass, that's an obvious one, but I had major synchronicities in my past with the name or the word Serenity as well. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the fact that I shuffled a million times and then number 31 and number 32 come out side by side and they're the counterparts for each other is a pretty slim likelihood, right? So I was like, that's weird. And then I start reading the channeled messages from Cassiel and Serenity, and I was like, this really is hitting home for me. And at that point, I recognized I had a pretty deep connection to the archangels, but I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know why, how, what, where, all of the things that we want to know right away once we start to figure out our path. And I honestly didn't think much more of it until I would, pull some cards for myself every once in a while, see what angels were around, but didn't really work with them at all. And then I started to do TikTok Live, and I would be doing TikTok Live, and my focus was mediumship at the time. And I started to talk about my healing journey and, finding the darkness within the light. And as I started talking on TikTok Live, things were just flowing out of me. And I was like, this is weird. I didn't expect this to happen. I had never been good at public speaking. I had been really good at writing, but I had never been good at public speaking. And I was recognizing that my throat chakra was opening. And I was like, where is this information coming to? And once I reflected on what I was saying, I went back to this deck and I went back to Cassiel and Serenity. And I was like, wow, okay, this makes a lot of sense that I resonated with those cards and with those energies prior to starting this journey. Now that I'm speaking, I'm recognizing that I carry some of this frequency that allows me to channel very, very easily kind of the resonance to Cassiel and Serenity's purpose and message as they help this earth. And Cassiel and Serenity are not angels that are typically visible to the Earth, and up until this point, really weren't. Cassiel is particularly known for taking a back seat and kind of watching things unfold and allowing karma to work its magic and not interfering in anything in the human experience. However, what was told to me when I first came into this recognition is that it's very important for Cassiel to be here at this time and to be helping us at this time because of the shift in our inability to align with divine timing due to technological advances and just modern day life. Like, we are completely disengaged from the rhythms of the earth and the universe due to all of our time spent on technology. And in addition to that, things are happening at speeds in which just aren't in alignment for the truth of us and our innate timing. We can get anything we want within 5 minutes, and even, furniture can be delivered. I don't know why this just came to mind. Somebody listening to this must have just ordered a couch, but I'm like, the fact that we can like just pick out a couch online and it be here tomorrow is wild. There's no interaction with true time. And Cassiel really comes in to help us slow down and recognize the importance of being in sync with divine timing and allowing things to unfold in the time that they're meant to, in order for karma and justice and just the energy of the universe to flow through us in the way that is most beneficial for our journeys here on Earth. In addition to divine timing, Castiel and Serenity also work with us to help us transmute darkness into light. And that's what I noticed on TikTok Live. A lot of what I was speaking about and a lot of what people were resonating with me about was my ability to explain shadow work from a more human perspective and really like getting to the root cause of our darkness and aligning to our light and confronting our fears and pushing through our fears in order to be empowered and enlightened on this path and on this journey, and recognizing that we are divine beings that have nothing to fear and that we can move through everything that we encounter. It really surprised me on TikTok too that people were asking questions about that just as much as they were asking questions about their past loved ones and or like asking for mediumship readings. And so I put all those things together and started to work with Cassiel and Serenity more and really honor that connection and start to connect with the archangels as a whole group as well. So there's 34 that are channeled in this deck that I have connected with, and 17 major archangels and then their feminine counterparts. So it's been really amazing to see how these beautiful entities of light are helping us and how we can even hold, frequencies of them. There's been so many different synchronistic experiences with names that resonate to the archangels, as well as just people I meet that embody the energy of these different archangels. And it goes to show that our unique frequency in this lifetime does carry our own kind of personality, our own mission, our own purpose. But in each lifetime, in each experience that we have in the different places in the universe, including here on this physical plane of Earth, we also carry different frequencies to help us and to help the Earth as well. And so that's where our mission comes in, right? Like, what are we here to do? And for my mission and recognizing this connection to Castiel and Serenity, it's not to teach everybody shadow work. It's not to help everybody get over their fears. That's a byproduct of me doing that for myself and aligning to my truth and allowing my voice to share what it is meant to in order to inspire others to do that, right? And I think we get really hung up on like our purpose, our path, like what frequencies are we carrying? Like, who are we here to help? And we're here to become the best version of ourselves, to get to the bottom of who we are, to remember our divinity. And through that, we will be put on paths that we are meant to be on in order to express that frequency. And that's all life is. It's just expressing our truest frequency and taking advantage of all of the beautiful opportunities that exist to live, to laugh, to love, to share, and to connect. And when we can connect to these archangels and recognize who's helping us and when they're helping us, it can just make that process so much more beautiful. So Cassiel and Serenity are always helping us get to the bottom of our darkness and to become comfortable in that, become comfortable in being alone, in solitude. But then through that, recognizing that we are truly never alone and that we have a whole team of guidance in the form of past loved ones and spirit guides and angels and all entities of light that help us on our journey. And so I highly recommend getting to know the archangels, especially if you're moving through grief. Archangel Azrael is the archangel that helps us move through beginnings and endings, recognizing it's never the end. So, like, even physical transitioning into non physical is just a rebirth into our true self, into home, truly. And every time we experience an ending on this physical planet, it feels devastating. It feels like we'll never recover, but we always do, right? And there's always something of light that can come from the darkness. And I think Cassiel and Azrael work really closely together in order to help us, especially with how dense this planet is right now, and have come to work together in order to provide peace as we move through transitions. I think because we are so disconnected from nature and the cycles of nature, the cycles of life and the cycles of endings and beginnings have become very foreign to us. So in the past, Cassiel and maybe even Azrael weren't as present because there wasn't a need for them to be. We didn't have technology taking us away from divine timing. We were connected to the cycles of the earth. We were connected to the moon and the stars. We depended on them in order to know what time of day it was or to know the weather and to take care of our crops and all of the things that we used to have to do that were connected to earth. But now we are so separate from that. And so these angels have become more present and are beautiful to work with in order to help us as we maintain our individual roles in society, because we can't just go homestead, all of us. I've said this since the moment I started awakening. There has to be a practicality in spirituality in the sense that these angels can help us exist in the societies that we are in. We are meant to be here for a reason. We're meant to utilize these societies, utilize these situations that we're in order to learn, grow, and evolve, because we all can't go and just live in the woods and live off the land and be totally connected to nature. It's just not accessible anymore, nor should it be, because we have other things to learn through these experiences. And calling on the angels to help us move through this human experience can be just so, so, so beneficial. So, those were an introduction to kind of how my experience has been with the angels thus far. I've since connected to many more of them and am now teaching a Get to Know the Archangels class on Sunday nights, as well as incorporating the archangels in the shadow work class that I teach. And it's been really beautiful to see how they help us with shadow work and how they help us with every aspect of being human, and recognizing them can just be so, so beneficial. So I hope this helped you gain a little perspective into the angelic realm. The angelic realm has many different levels. This just covered kind of my experience with it and particularly the archangels, but definitely dive into learning more about the entire angelic realm and how the angels have always, helped you on your way. And tune into them to ask for some more help and recognize them when they show up on their own. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time.